Welcome to Solved and Unsolved Mysteries of the Bible. This is all about today, Rocks of Ages, and this is a continuing feature that we have in our Solved and Unsolved Mystery series. Today we're looking at the mystery of Beth Shemesh, the House of Sun, and this is number 2 in that series. Modern-day Beth Shemesh is about 20 miles outside Jerusalem. It has a population of more than 110,000 and is growing fast. So what happens when the past clashes with the present? And that's exactly what we have today and what we'll be looking at. On our map, the arrow on the left-hand side, if you could locate Beth Shemesh, and then 20 miles into the mountains and up to Mount Zion is Jerusalem. And there you will find that on your right-hand side with the blue arrow. It gives you a pretty good feel for things. A major archaeological discovery in Israel raised the question of how to preserve the past without stopping progress towards the future when a modern highway in an ancient town came to a crossroads. No one expected it, including the Israel Antiquities Authority, said Yehuda Govrin, who headed the salvage excavation at Beth Shemesh. What they found was the biblical town of Beth Shemesh from the time of Isaiah and Hezekiah. Archaeologists thought a much earlier site on the other side of the road was all there was to ancient Beth Shemesh, but before expanding a highway, they excavated and found a treasure. So notice what they had. And everything to the lower part is what they were working on. They put the highway in, and they wanted to expand it to double the size of it. And in order to do so, they had to dig a little bit. That's the law of the land, and see if there's anything under there. And so up on the hill, they found more of the city, the second one that they built. If the Israel Antiquities Authority would have known that this is what there was, they wouldn't have allowed the development of the road there, Govrin told the news. What they understood from the finds is that after the city of Beth Shemesh was destroyed in the year 701 BC by Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, a new settlement was found not on the top of the mound, but on the eastern slope of the mound, said Yehuda Kaplan, curator of the Bible Lands Museum exhibit, Highway Through History, that contains artifacts from the site. So what does the Bible say about Beth Shemesh? Here's just a few things. Beth Shemesh is first mentioned in the Bible in Joshua 21. It was a city of the tribe of Judah, and it was set aside as one of 13 cities of Levites. The Levites lived in this city and their families. That was all that could live there, and their children. Here's that verse. And An with her suburbs, and Judah with her suburbs, and Beth Shemesh with her suburbs, 9 cities out of those 2 tribes. It's talking about those cities that got the Levites got. And if I can go to Judah down below, and you can see Bethlehem off to the right, I've dropped an arrow into where Beth Shemesh would have been, but they did not put it on the map at this point. In 1 Samuel 6, verses 12 to 18, the Philistines seek to return the Ark of the Covenant. Beth Shemesh is the first stop in Israel. What's happened is they took the Ark of the Covenant in battle and took it back, and it basically rotated throughout their major cities because there was a great infliction. The Lord God put it upon the Philistines for bringing his ark into that foreign country and in before those gods and goddesses that they worshipped, especially Dagon. And so they were inflicted with plague. And this sort of traces, if you go up and look at Shiloh, it traces the path of the ark. And most of those treks go through Philistine fortresses and strongholds. Ekron, Ashdod, Gath are huge. And the oxen took the straight way to the way of Beth Shemesh, the straightest route they could think of, and went along the highway, lowing as they went, and turned not aside to the right hand or the left. And the lords of the Philistines followed after them, went after them, unto the border of Beth Shemesh. So they crossed into Israel, and it was peaceful. They knew what was happening. And they of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark and rejoiced to see it. And the ark came into the field of Joshua, a Beth Shemite, and stood there where there was a great stone, and they clave the wood of the cart and offered the oxen a burnt offering unto the Lord. They immediately, it was basically back in Israel, and we need to offer an offering to the Lord. You can see sort of the background art I've been using. This is by the same artist. And it's quite darker. And the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the coffer that was with it, wherein the jewels of gold were, and put them on the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices the same day to the Lord. And when the 5 lords of the Philistines had seen it, they returned to Ekron the same day. These are the golden emerods, which the Philistines returned for a trespass offering unto the Lord. For Ashdod, for Gaza, for Askelon, for Gath, and for Ekron. Those are the 5 stronghold cities. The lords sent them peace offerings, sin offerings of what they'd done. And the golden mice, according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines, belonged to the 5 lords, both of fenced cities and country villages, even unto the great stone of Abel, whereon they sat down the ark of the Lord, which stone remains to this day in the field of Joshua, the Beth Shemite. So what these 5 lords sent a sin offering to Israel. Then for every city and village that they had, they sent them a golden mouse. And so they got a lot of gold back from them. In 2 Kings 14, it says the city is mentioned as being the site of the battle between Amaziah, king of Judah, or Judea, I should say, and Jehoash, king of Israel. Jehoash comes and he wants to take the city. He makes a move against a weak king and tries to take the city of Jerusalem. And Judah was put to the worse before Israel, and they fled every man to their tents. And Jehoash had a straight shot to the city. The king of Israel took Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Jehoash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh, and came to Jerusalem, broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim unto the corner gate, 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and silver and all the vessels that were found in the house of the Lord, and the treasure of the king's house, and hostages. And he went back to Samaria. So he didn't get the ark and the golden candlestick and those things, but he knew that there was gold and silver and vessels used in the service of the Lord, and he knew where they were. So and he got them, took hostages and treasures out of the king's house, and went home. Number 4, after the destruction of much of Judah by Sennacherib in 701 BC, the city was abandoned for a while. It rose again in importance with the restructuring of a large reservoir, water source. It was totally destroyed by the Babylonian conquest of Judah around 586 before Christ. There is no New Testament mention of Beth Shemesh. So what did they find in the rocks? So before the roads, let's read jar handles. This is what they found. Jar handles with royal seals. Smashed figurines with other artifacts from the site are displayed in an exhibit. But there's more to the story. Here's a picture of those things I just described. And what they do often is they take every broken piece of pottery they can find, and then they will, back in the lab, they'll put it back together. They will spend their time piecing, and you can see right in the middle, do you see the pot? Perhaps oil was in this, with the small at the neck, the handle. You can see there was a big break there, but they didn't necessarily find things that are in the back behind it, because the neck doesn't fully attach, so there's a piece missing there. This is an olive oil and wine presses, lots of them. Here there's just, the dig goes on, and the more you get, people know what they're doing, they can train others with them. They break off sections. In this case, these are actual rooms. This is a ritual bath called a mikveh. It was of water, and this purified people, and they would go down into here and wash and come back out. This is a view of a monumental building, huge, uncovered during the excavation, but it's now dismantled. The building functioned as a synagogue. Can you see pillars coming up here and there? But look more off outside of that big rectangular structure you're looking at. Look off to the sides of pillars that were going up. There's more to this structure than you can imagine. Later, it was rebuilt and transformed into a larger part of a Christian chapel during the Byzantine period. That's after Constantinople. This is a cave down underneath. It was first used during the Persian and the Hellenistic periods, and that would have been the Medes and the Persians, and then going into the Greek era. And together with an elaborate system of man-made tunnels, people would hide here. And when bad times came, and they did it especially during the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Romans in 132 to 136 AD. Rome was really hot and was not putting up with anything. And this was the last major revolt against the Romans. The excavations in the northwestern part of Beth Shemesh, they've uncovered major industrial activities, olive oil presses, pottery kilns. Perhaps this is where they manufactured and they made their money, dating to the Byzantine period. Now here's an excavated wine press on the left, and then the Israel Museum of Archaeology has brought in an artist, and this is on display to view, of how reconstruction of how this operation actually worked. So look at the pencil drawing, and you see the wine press. Of course, you see a person walking the wine press that did not have room for an animal. Okay, now go to your far left. Do you see the hole? Okay, that's where the juice from the grapes would drop down into underground. And they would be washed in the vats, etc., and cleaned and get impurities from them, and it would pour down into the larger one. Okay, let's move on. Here looks like a kiln coming up on the left in an older photograph. And in the upper part, that is definitely a wine press. So a second statement to make of what's going on. If Israel's going to progress, they obviously have to have new housing and new businesses. They have to be built. And it'll require digging into the ground. at least to see what's here, and ultimately down into the ground for foundational purposes. This is the new area of concern. So here's a quote from the mayor. It's complicated because I want to protect the road. I want to protect the tell, the site, and I need to find the way to protect both of them. It's very important for everybody. Archaeologists and developers knew they had to work together. Well, they came up with a compromise plan to alter the road and still preserve the historical site with the hope of developing the past for future generations. Now we'll flip the picture. If you can see the old site's down in the bottom on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side is the newer. So how does the house of the sun shine on us today? What's this what's this about, and what is this to speak? Because Beth Shemesh, Beth means house, like Bethlehem means house of bread. Lahem is bread. Beth is house, Shemesh is son. After the conquest of Canaan by Joshua, Beth Shemesh was designated city of Judah for the Levites, for a special group of Levites. I didn't tell you this to begin with because I saved it for this. This was the group that they were to serve the Lord in the tabernacle and the future temple. It was a city to be the house of the sun, to reflect God the Son ultimately and show forth the glory of God and his promises. Great things needed to come out of that town. Beth Shemesh was a border town. The Philistine nation was her western next-door neighbor, and there is proof based upon the theft of the ark, issues here and there. Ultimately, Judah fell, and idolatry through many of the kings cropped up. And the Levites lost their mission, and they lost their sparkle. And so there's a principle involved. You can't shine if you shop the culture of Ekron. You can't do it. You can't shine for the Lord if you spend your time with the Philistines. The offering of sacrifices and service is good, but it must be done according to the Word of God, to the book, the way God tells us to live. We have a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto you do well that you take heed, as unto the light that shines in a dark place, until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts. 2 Peter 1:19. As God's people, God's called us to shine until he calls us home. Well, this brings us to the end to this excavation. So off we go again on our next adventure. Fasten your camel belts, and we'll be back. And I invite you to check out our YouTube channel before you leave. We have loads of Bible studies, Americana. There's a playlist, and one of the topics would be treasure hunt. These are short excavations, finds, recent finds in Israel, mostly there, and just what's going on, and I try to keep you up to date. So I'll catch you next time, and God bless you.